So here we have the chopper loadout. The first thing that we're going to come to the chopper loadout is a primary weapon. We're going to have three different rocket types: Hydras, Zunis, and smart rockets. Hydras are great for infantry. They're still decent towards armored targets and the other attack chopper or the transport chopper, but they won't take out armored targets as quickly as the Zuni rockets will. But Hydra rockets are so much quicker at taking out infantry than Zunis are. So between these two, these are the only two rocket types I go for. The third, even though it's an upgrade or quote unquote an upgrade, I don't know if any good chopper pilot ever uses these. The whole point of these are they'll quote unquote, they'll lock onto your target as it gets close to them. But you don't get very many. You can't do that much damage, high output of damage with them. And basically, it's supposed to help you. Maybe it helps you keep you in the air just a little bit longer if you're fighting against another inexperienced pilot. But any pilot that I've ever fought, and I haven't fought many that use these, usually they're very easy to shoot out of the sky. So again, going back to Hydras and Zunis, in response to the attack chopper, each Hydra will do 11 damage per rocket. So it'll be 11, 22, 33. Zunis, most of the time, do 20 per rocket. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. I have seen the time. Sometimes it's inconsistent on where they hit. Sometimes they can go from 20 to then to 34, or sometimes 28. But most of the time they do 20 damage. So that's what I have to research a little bit more. But Hydras, I've never seen any deviation from that on the attack chopper. The other two big differences between these rockets is the way that they fly. Hydras are much slower, and it's much more difficult to shoot them long range and be accurate with them. And that's why when it comes to infantry, like you just kind of shoot them, especially when infantry is not going to move very quickly. So there's the explosion on them is going to be fine, even if you want to shoot infantry long range. But the attack chopper, it can be very difficult. That's why whenever I'm using Hydras to fight, a lot of times I'll use buildings to bring the other chopper in close and then fight close quarters. Zunis are exact opposite of that. They're you can the Hydras you'll be able to fire off very quickly, boom, 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 boom. Zunis are much slower firing, but they're very fast and very damaging towards the attack chopper. So with the Hydras you'll get 14 per pod. The Zunis you'll get 8 per pod. So make your Zunis count. Don't try and just shoot them off like you want to make them count. But when you do make them count, when they do start hitting, they do a lot of damage. So those are the three things there. Secondary weapon, heat seekers or tow missile. Most beginner pilots use heat seekers. Most advanced pilots use tow missile. Why? Because most advanced pilots can shoot other pilots out of the air using their primary weapon. So whenever you're using heat seekers, I fly against people that use heat seekers, and especially in Shanghai, and there's plenty of buildings where I can use heat seekers to I can just have them explode on a building or something like that. So if it's one on one and you're using heat seekers, then I can probably make that be more of a disadvantage, especially if I can land my tow missile on you, because if you can shoot a tow missile in the air and hit the other attack chopper, it's instant death. And then a tow missile is also great for ground targets, both infantry and armor. It does a lot of damage to armor, and if you hit an infantry right on, it'll kill them too. So, and it's actually pretty easy to shoot especially if in trees like on a rooftop or running, like it's actually pretty easy to hit infantry with a tow missile. So those are the two options there. Countermeasures. For the pilot, you're going to look at IR flares, infrared flares, and ECM jammer. IR flares, the difference between these two, IR flares are just to basically prevent a lock on sometimes, and then just escape enough for you to escape. IR flares, the problem with it is that as soon as you fire them off, you're immediately available for locking on again. So wherever you're at, you need to get your flares and get out of there. Depending on where you're being locked at from the ground or from another chopper. It depends. ECM provides a couple seconds of great defense. First of all, you disappear from air radar. The other thing is that any rocket that's fired at you should technically not hit you. It should circle around you and then explode and not actually kill you. So that's what's good about ECM. The other thing is like once you fire it, you can actually be locked down for quite some time. So yeah, that's kind of the difference between these two. But sometimes, when even after you fire ECM off, especially with IGLAs, right now they'll go right through your ECM protection and hit the chopper. I've seen this happen, and it's very frustrating because it's like not even having a countermeasure. But I won't even get into that. So between these two, the only time where one time where IR flares can fail is when the target who's locking onto is very very close. Um, so if you're going over a rooftop, you're close to a chopper, they're locked onto you, they fire off, and even if you fire your flares, a lot of times it'll still hit your chopper. Fire extinguisher is great if you are. Uh, it's great if you're a gunner. The reason why I'll explain that is it's great for critical hits. Um, so let's say you're flying around and a tank shell hits you, or a TV missile hits you. What can happen is if you're the gunner with a fire extinguisher, you'll do what's called a seat swap. The pilot exits the vehicle and then enters it real quick in the air, and you go into the pilot seat, fire the fire extinguisher off, and you go immediately from like maybe 9%, 8%, all the way back up, all the way up to I think it's 35 or 37. I can't remember. It's somewhere right around in there, and then you can fly away and you're good to go. You have great mobility. It'll give you mobility right away. There's no critical, there's no mobility kills or any of that stuff. So that's what's great about the fire extinguisher. I have flown around with this just for the fun of to see how I like it because the reload time of the fire extinguisher is very quick. But then again, you lose like people are locking onto all day long. The fire extinguisher is really not going to help with that. So um, upgrades. Uh, You'll start out with the gyro stabilizer here, but as soon as you can get the air radar, get it. This is really just about the only thing that is pretty much set in stone that every pilot uh, will never deviate from this. Every good pilot will always use air radar so you can see where the enemy's coming from. If you choose stealth coding and you're fighting against me, I am liking that because guess what? I don't use heat seekers, so it doesn't matter, as far as locking on to you or other targets trying to lock on to me. I'm going to use buildings and everything that's my stealth. So in essence, that's why this can almost be more of a waste. And once you start getting good at flying, like the number of crashes that I have get reduced as you become a better and better pilot. So air radar, very, very important, especially if you're a gunner. These obviously won't help you if you're, I mean, the air radar is where it's at when it comes to both pilot and gunner. Paint, this doesn't really matter. You can make your chopper look cool. I personally use the white one because whenever the tower falls in Shanghai, you look white and maybe you're a little harder to see in the fog far away. So whether it works or not, I don't know. That's one reason why I choose it. The last thing here, the last gunner secondary weapon, uh, TV guided missile and laser guided. Laser guided, you can lock onto targets. It takes some time to lock on. The person you're locking onto will hear a tone so that they can, hit their countermeasures in case your missile comes in. Uh, so this can be, I would get this once you get it, but as soon as you get TV guided missile, go for that because the laser guided can sometimes make you not pay attention to what the chopper pilot is doing. You need to be in sync with him. If he's off, shooting at somebody else, you're like, oh, I see a tank below. I'm going to lock onto that. Well, he may be engaged in battle with something else that he needs your help with, and you're too busy locking onto something else. So only use the laser guided if you can sort of read your pilot and say, oh, I see you're locking onto that tank. Let me lock onto him too and fire it. But this will not go through active protection. The TV guided will. So that's why the TV guide is so great because you can, shoot anything. You can shoot choppers out of the sky. You can put the transports. You can do about 65 damage on those. You can do 35 damage on tanks, along with mobility hits if they don't already have a mobility hit. Plus, you're also like you'll know that this is probably where you'll be more in sync with the pilot if you're using the TV guided missile because you'll see what he's looking at. If you do a TV guided missile, you can't move it around. So All right, what are you looking at, pilot? What should I be shooting at? This is what's going on. So TV guided missile is great, especially like when the pilot starts shooting at a tank. The tank deploys active protection. Sometimes your TV guided missile can finish him off because you can go right to that active protection. So that's what's great about that. Gunner optics. Um, this is the other one, in my opinion. There's really only one thing to go for here is gunner thermal. Use gunner zoom until you get gunner thermal because I don't see there's a whole lot of point in the IR&D. You can sort of maybe a stepping stone towards the thermals, but the gunner zoom is great for seeing some targets, but you know, before a couple patches came out, the gunner zoom, you could actually shoot at targets very far away and be accurate with them. The accuracy and the hit registration changed at one point, so the gunner zoom was no longer quite as effective. So that's why, in essence, I switched to gunner thermals. So gunner thermals, you'll see everything. You'll be able to see targets pretty far away, shoot them and kill them. You'll be like, "How on earth did you see me?" Well, it's because I can see a white speck in a black area very, very easily. So um, gunner belt feeder. There's nothing more to say about this. This is the only thing you'll need. Don't get the proxy scan. Like there's no point for it. I don't even know why Battlefield even has this. Maybe just to laugh and be like, well, you can have it as an upgrade. Like, no, this is not an upgrade. Stick with the belt feeder all day. So in review, Hydras or Zunis, depends on who you're trying to fight. I know most advanced pilots will use Zunis. Um, I have fun with Hydras from time to time when I feel like just killing a bunch of infantry on top of rooftops, and I can still shoot out a lot of. I can still shoot pilots out of the air who are using Zunis against me. You just have to kind of maybe hope for a good um, gunner if you're going to use Hydras. So uh, tow missile, heat seekers if you're a beginner, but move on to the tow. Don't rely on your heat seekers. Rely on your primary for shooting other things out of the sky. Countermeasures for pilot IR flares or ECM, but I would recommend the ECM. Gunner get fire extinguisher. Upgrade air radar, ink blotch, whatever. Gunner secondary TV guided missile. Gunner optics, gunner thermal, and the gunner upgrade is the belt feeder. So hope this helps. If you ever see me playing on EGO servers, let me know what you think of the video or feel free to comment. Thanks for watching.